So you're saying that you think that President Trump was actually doing this because he was combating corruption. This is, of course, a president.
Well, yeah, there are all kinds of accusations that Burisma and Hunter Biden and the company were corrupt, and the founder of the company was corrupt.
But this is a president whose former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, former national security advisor, Mike Flynn, former campaign advisor, Roger Stone, former deputy campaign chair, Rick Gates, former associate, George Papadopoulos, all of them have been convicted of federal crimes. In addition, last year, Trump University settled a $25 million fraud lawsuit. Last month, President Trump admitted misusing his own charitable foundation's money, was ordered to pay $2 million. You really think President Trump is concerned about rooting out corruption?
I think most of what you listed and most of the people that were indicted or convicted were alleged to have been part of some sort of huge Russian conspiracy. But I think what we found out from the Inspector General's report is that it was all based on a false premise that Carter Page had something to do with Russia.
The Trump Justice Department put all those people in prison or sentenced all those people. It's not me. I just wanted to know, do you really think President Trump is concerned about corruption? Just a yes or no. Is that something you really believe?
Yes, I do think that Ukraine has been one of the corruptest countries on earth.
That's not what I asked.
Russian-backed or Western-backed, all the governments of Ukraine have been corrupt. And yes, I do think that foreign aid does not cure corruption. I think foreign aid aids and abets corruption.
But you're not really answering the question.
They stole $20-30 billion. Well, sure, I'm answering the question. I think
you're saying you're concerned about corruption.
Foreign aid.
Okay. But let's be clear here.
The president was too. If you listen to the president's speeches throughout his campaign and throughout his administration, he's been concerned with corruption with regard to foreign aid. Every time I talk to the president, he's talking about how countries are taking from us and not doing as we have asked them to do and not being good allies. And so this is a common theme, and I think it's a political point, and I think the Democrats are trying to impeach him for politics they disagree with.
So just to be clear, this precedent that you are prepared to set, you would be okay with a president, say Elizabeth Warren, asking a foreign government to investigate her top Republican rival as long as there was some sort of allegation about that Republican rival having some sort of connection to allegations of corruption. That's going to be okay with you.
I think y'all misreport this. But I think y'all misreport this.
It's just a fact.
What you guys say every time is, well, it's not. I mean, what you said is completely untrue. The president didn't call up the president of Ukraine and say, no, let me finish. He didn't call up the president of Ukraine and say, investigate my rival.
He said investigate Joe Biden.
A certain person and a certain... Let me finish. Here's the thing is, you guys are not being honest with the facts here. He does not call up and say, investigate my rival. He says, investigate a person. So let's say I'm the Republican sheriff.
And Joe Biden is his rival.
And let me finish. Let me finish my sentence. If I'm the Republican sheriff here and my Democrat opponent's son is caught stealing from a liquor store, am I supposed to say, oh, I'm allowed to investigate corruption unless that person is related to someone that might run against me? So you can't make rules that way. It's either corruption or it's not corruption. It happens that in this case, there were allegations of corruption, and they involved Joe Biden and his son. But you keep saying that the president said, investigate my rival.
He said, investigate Joe Biden.
Corruption.
He said, investigate Joe. The word corruption does not appear in that transcript, sir. The word corruption does not. He said, investigate Joe and Hunter Biden. But I know you want to talk about Afghanistan.
Who worked for a company? No, but who worked for a company called Burisma, which had been investigated for many years for corruption. There are still allegations of corruption against Burisma, and I don't know that we've gotten the full picture.
He didn't say investigate Burisma.
This oligarch and Hunter Biden's involved.
See, he didn't say investigate Burisma or go investigate all the corrupt companies in your country. He said investigate Joe and Hunter Biden. There's no secret about that.
Because nothing really drives home the point that Trump actually cares about corruption as refusing to answer the simple question about it over and over and over. This is Trump's golf partner, Republican Senator Rand Paul, who in his breathless defense of the president still can't manage to say that Trump truly cares about rooting out corruption without adding a laundry list of qualifiers. The first time Jake Tapper asks if Rand Paul really thinks Trump cares about corruption, he says, yes, absolutely, I do think Ukraine is a corrupt country, which is not an answer to the question. Then he says that Trump has been concerned with corruption regarding foreign aid, which again is not an answer to the question. The fact that Rand Paul cannot physically bring himself to say out loud that Trump cares about corruption without introducing other factors into the equation shows the extent to which it is not true. Of course Trump didn't care about corruption in Ukraine. He didn't even mention corruption on the call that was supposedly about corruption. If you have a phone call that's about corruption and you forget to talk about corruption, then no matter how much you try to will it into existence, that phone call wasn't about corruption. And beyond that, we already know that Trump didn't actually care about any legitimate investigation into the issue that he purportedly cared so much about. He just wanted the announcement of an investigation into the Bidens. Gordon Sondland, a first-hand witness, testified to exactly that under oath.
But he had to get those two investigations if that official act was going to take place, correct?
He had to announce the investigations. He didn't actually have to do them, as I understood it.
In other words, Trump wasn't at all concerned about due process under the law. He just wanted the announcement, the soundbite that he could use in his campaign ads to attack Joe Biden. It's not about justice, it's about perverting justice to promote a decidedly unjust cause. And beyond all of that, let's drop the act. We're talking about a guy who was just ordered to pay $25 million to defrauded students of his own university. A guy who was ordered to dissolve his charitable foundation because he couldn't stop misusing the funds. A guy who committed campaign finance violations by paying off porn stars and models for affairs with campaign funds. A guy who uses his office to promote the businesses that his family owns and profits from on a daily basis. The list is never ending. Donald Trump is the personification of corruption in everything he does. So to claim that a flagrant extortion scheme wherein he used taxpayer-funded military assistance for a country at war with Russia as a bribe to exact dirt on his top political opponent somehow on some planet isn't what we all know it is nothing but an Orwellian fever dream for Republicans. But the part that puts on full display the extent to which Republicans have blinded themselves to the facts in their desperation to defend Trump is when Rand Paul says that Trump didn't say investigate my rival, he simply said investigate Joe Biden. You guys get it now? Nothing at all to do with politics here. This clearly wasn't about investigating Trump's rival, it was simply about investigating Joe Biden, who just so happens to be Trump's top political rival. So it totally checks out. And here's the thing, if Rand Paul and Republicans were really that concerned about Hunter Biden, this arbitrary American citizen working for a natural gas company on the other side of the planet, you'd have thought that they'd have said something at least once during the 2 years that they were in charge of Congress, at least once before Joe Biden announced his candidacy. And yet it just so happened that this instance of unprecedented, egregious corruption, of corruption so horrific that they're willing to hang Trump's entire impeachment defense on it, only became worth investigating when Biden jumped into the race. But not before. Yeah, no, that totally checks out. The fact is, if you're going to hang your hat on the idea that Trump is simply some anti-corruption crusader, you might want to take into account that not only has he never bothered to even try to root out corruption before, but he actually engaged in it throughout his entire tenure as president. And the fact that Rand Paul can't even bring himself to say otherwise speaks volumes.